Okay, you guys, so to help you out getting to a finish on your project, I was able to record this demo this afternoon and this evening, and hopefully it'll help you get to a finish. As Phil had requested, I'm going to try and take an area to a finish. Now, mind you, the area I'm going to try and take to a finish is this area in here, which, when you look at the photograph, it's pretty much mush. But that's not a bad thing in a painting necessarily. You're going to have areas that are clear, and you're going to have areas that are mush, and they're just as important as the focal points, because the focal points only feel like focal points because these areas are not as resolved. So anyway, I'm going to try and finish this area over here. And if you look here, I've got some numbers at the end. These are basically the times that it took me to give you kind of some sort of idea of how it works. Now, one thing I want to emphasize, this isn't quite a fair comparison to what you're trying to do. It does demonstrate how I paint, but it's pretty much demonstrating straight up painting. Now, one thing I'd want you to understand is what has to happen before the stage is you have to have kind of a three-dimensional understanding of these things as forms, and hopefully you got that from your reference prior to this, but you do need to understand that before you can really paint this well. Now, and obviously I'm going to be doing fairly straight up painting, but at the very end of it I'll show you kind of how I would turn it into a night scene, or give you a quick and dirty version of that. Okay, so anyway, getting started. If you notice down here, I've got, this is the initial lay-in, the stuff that I did on the prior demo. Now, I started at 4:42, and it took about, 11 minutes to do, if you watch this area here, it took 11 minutes to do this. And I'm just kind of tightening up the drawing a little bit. And then it took another, looks like, about another half hour to do this. And you can see that, this isn't perfect, but this is a pretty fair comparison. My tree's a little bit too big. There are some things in here that aren't quite resolved, but this is enough to get going, and this is kind of where your value study comes in. I know this is going to scare the hell out of you, but your value studies should basically look like this. They should be an underpainting. That would allow you to go forward. Now, the final stage, another 5 minutes. I tightened up a couple more things on it. Another 5 minutes gave me that. Just a few highlights. And so now, this is good enough for me to proceed. So now I'm going to proceed to color, and I'm going to close that down. No, I wasn't able to start the color until the evening, so you can see I started at 9:11 p.m. And in about 7 minutes to start the color, the first thing I did was I was looking at areas like the tree trunks and thinking, do you see kind of these bluish tones in here? I was thinking, that's the initial tone I want to put in. So I just kind of scattered the bluish tones in here. Now watch, this is again about 7 minutes of work. I'm not being terribly careful here because I know I'm going to be building it up, but I'm just kind of putting down some rough notes wherever I see them. And so for instance, in an area like this, I see a little bit of a bluish tint, so I put a little bit of a bluish splash there, and that's kind of how I approach this. Now then I come in, I want to put in some midtones, so I put in some greens, and it's the same kind of thing. And do you see how I'm just kind of layering them? I see some greens here, so I plug some greens in over there. Now I'm doing this right over my value study, so that's helping me hold the values. But really I'm just kind of kissing the thing with color a little bit. I'm going a little bit further. I think I wanted some warm greens here, and this was about another 3 minutes. That's the warm tone. So I was looking at this and missing things like this area and this area and this area, and some of these warmer tones that are getting hit by sunlight, direct light. So I wanted to put those in once I had the base tones in for the atmospheric colors, and I ended up with something like this. Now I want to point something out. When you look at this, some of you might go, oh my God, that's so dramatic, and it's so dramatically wrong from the photograph. It's so exaggerated. That's okay, and I knew I was going to do that because I knew I was going to be pulling it back later on. But at an initial stage, there's no harm in putting down some extra color like this. In fact, it can be a real plus. That's one of the things that the Impressionists kind of gave to painting, was the sense of you can go a little overboard and then pull it back. So then I took another 10 minutes between these two. And I wanted to make a bunch of kind of miscellaneous changes. And what I'm really doing when I'm doing this is I'm looking back and forth between these. And I'm just kind of looking for whatever doesn't feel quite right. So, I'm making adjustments. So in this case, I'm making a bunch of minor changes. And this is, again, about 10 minutes. And you can see a bunch of adjustments that I'm making. Putting in some warm tones down, or some, not warm tones, but putting in some tones down here. Putting in some bunches of leaves. And you can see it's starting to get a little more authentic relative to the photograph. And then I took a little bit of a break. So this was about 20 minutes. That was about a 20-minute period in there. And then I took a break. And then starting up again a few minutes later, I was unhappy with how the tree was looking in the light, and the light of the direct light hitting the masses and hitting the background. So I dropped in that, to get those a little bit closer. And that was about 12 minutes, it looks like. And then I got into the tree shadow. Oh, and what I'm doing here is I'm dropping in some blues. And it's really the same kind of thing. Like, I'm looking at an area like this and I'm getting a sense of some blue light. And so I'm popping it in over there. I'm looking here, I'm getting a sense of some blue light. And I'm popping it in. So now I'm not worrying too much about... Actually, in a way, I'm consciously dropping color everywhere. I want to do that because I can always control it later. I can always mess with it later. But this makes the thing feel a little more colorful, makes it feel a little bit more like a painting. So I'm not being too precise. I'm just kind of constantly looking back and forth for my reference and painting in what I want to paint in. And I'm making changes where I want to make changes. Now, winding it up, this was about a 14-minute stage here. I was playing with it, and let's see what I was doing. Okay, yeah, I was just making minor corrections. So like mostly making corrections to edges. Like if you look in these areas here, I wanted to fix those edges because they didn't feel quite right to me. So I'm trying to make the edges a little more precise. And if you watch the tree in particular, you can see how the tree sort of stiffens up. You can see how some of these things, some of the contrasts here drop away. And that's, this is the way you do it. You just kind of sneak up on it. Now, the final thing I did was, at this point I was feeling like this is fine, but I have a tendency, I know this about myself, I have a tendency to overdo the contrast a little bit and overdo the color a little bit. It's a sense of the dramatic that I like. So if I'm going for realism, which is what I'm kind of steering you guys towards, I was feeling like some of these things were a bit too contrasty, a bit too bold, and I wanted to actually, artistically, if I was doing this whole image as part of my painting, I'd want to push this back a little bit because it's in the middle ground. And so if I were actually doing this as a painting, I'd want to push this back a little bit, desaturate it a little bit, moderate the contrast. And so I took about 2 minutes and just dropped a little tone in. And do you see how subtle that is? That's just to kind of bring the value contrasts a little bit together, shift it a little bit towards blue, make it feel like I'm looking through a bit of atmosphere. Okay, so now that's kind of where I would leave the day scene. Now if you look side to side between these, they're not ideal, they're not perfect, but it's not bad. It's not bad from a painting standpoint. And remember, again, this would not be a focal point in your painting. And if you look at this and you think, well gosh, that looks like mush. Well, so does this. And that's kind of, how you paint it. I think a lot of you guys are still getting used to tonal drawing and tonal painting, and you don't have to describe everything. You don't want to. You want some things to get lost, and that's actually much more realistic to how we see. So anyway, hopefully you can look at these two and kind of see how they relate. Now, to sort of show you where I would take this from here, if I wanted to make a different lighting situation, and again, it's not quite fair. What you guys are having to do is a little bit more complex. I decided, well, I'll try and make it a quick version of a night painting. Now, again, remember that I told you not to do this on your own paintings, because you really should do them as separate paintings. But as a way to quickly show you what I wanted to do, because it was getting late at night and stuff, I did drop a layer of blue in there to kind of simulate a night scene. But again, pay attention to how I manipulate it. So I dropped the layer of blue in, and then I rub out a couple of the highlights for the trees. And you have to realize that this is more color than we actually see. Technically, this should be black and white. I mean, if you're seeing in moonlight, you're really seeing in black and white. But for the sake of our art, for the sake of painting, you can add more color and you can have some more fun with it. So what I did was, on this layer here, I introduced some color, and you can see that between here is 10:55 and 11:11. So it took me all of about 16 minutes to do these next 3 steps. So I just dropped in a little bit of color in here. And it's not perfect, but what I'm doing is I'm kind of imagining the moonlight falling on some of these leaf masses. And I'm just dropping in I'm imagining the light of the moon and what color it might be. And I'm dropping it in on these objects to try and give you a sensation of that. And then on this next step, I'm putting in, the night sky would be dark. And then the final step, I'm putting in some stars. Now, so you can look at that and you can kind of see how this evolves. So like, here's the day scene, here's the night scene, and it's not perfect, but it gives you an idea. Now again, you should be doing more than just dropping in a tint layer. You have to be a lot more thoughtful about it, but it gives you some idea of where this could go. And to just show the changes from the initial stage, again, if you take a look at this, you can see how it evolves. Here's the drawing from the initial lay-in to the value study, and then as I lay in each layer. So anyway, I hope that kind of helps you guys and helps you guys get a handle on how this works. So the thing that should give you some encouragement is that was about 2.5 hours this afternoon. And while this isn't a huge area, it isn't a small area either in terms of what I was able to get done, and that is finished painting. Now the only difference between that and a focal point area is, on a focal point area, obviously you're going to have a lot more, a little bit more love and care and attention. But if you take a look at these two, if you can finish an area in the background like this, you don't have to have everything resolved. You have to have everything appropriately resolved. So, you don't want your supporting cast to be stealing the attention away from from the lead actor. So, in any case, hope that helps you guys. Good luck. Godspeed. Continue going forward, and let's see some nice work on Thursday. So, anyway, hope that helps. Talk to you later.